Love your enemies. 3 words that shook the ancient world and still shock people today. Picture ancient Jerusalem. Roman soldiers terrorizing the streets. Hatred burning in people's hearts. Then Jesus drops this bombshell that changed everything. Crazy, right? Like telling someone to hug their bully. But here's the mind-blowing part. It actually works. Look at Martin Luther King Jr. When angry mobs attacked, his followers responded with peace. They got beaten, but didn't fight back. The result? They changed America forever. Nelson Mandela did it too. After 27 years in prison, he chose love over revenge, transforming an entire nation. Even science backs this up. Harvard researchers found that loving your enemies literally rewires your brain for better health. Need proof it works today? In 2015, when families of the Charleston church shooting victims faced the shooter in court, they chose forgiveness over hate. Their actions stunned the world and sparked a national movement. Jesus didn't just preach this, he lived it. While dying on a cross, he forgave his killers. That moment was so powerful, even the Roman officer in charge couldn't deny its impact. In a world obsessed with revenge and cancel culture, loving your enemies might be the most revolutionary act possible. Hard, yes. Impossible, maybe. But that's exactly why it's changed lives for 2,000 years. Judge not, that you be not judged. Simple words with explosive power. We've all heard, "Don't judge me." But Jesus wasn't giving a free pass for bad behavior. He was dropping a truth bomb that hits even harder today. Picture this: religious leaders pointing fingers at everyone's sins while hiding their own. Sound familiar? It's like those social media warriors calling out others while doing the exact same things behind closed doors. Here's the mind-blowing part. Jesus was exposing a natural law. The standards you use to judge others become the standards used to judge you. Scientists call it social reciprocity. Jesus called it 2,000 years ago. Modern psychology confirms it. Studies show the traits we hate most in others are often the ones we're battling ourselves. It's like judging others is just our brain's way of running from our own mirror. Need proof? Just look at headlines when religious leaders who spent years judging others get caught in the same acts they condemned. It's exactly what Jesus warned about. But here's the game changer. This isn't about never judging. It's about understanding that your harshest judgments are usually a window into your own soul. When you point a finger, 3 point back at you. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Boom. These words hit the ancient world like a sonic blast. Imagine someone today claiming they had all of Google's knowledge, Netflix's entertainment, and Amazon's resources in their head. That's how shocking this was. Here's why it was mind-blowing. Everyone was selling different paths to truth. Rome had power, Greece had wisdom. Every teacher pointed to their teachings. But Jesus? He pointed to himself. A carpenter's son claiming to be truth itself? Unheard of. The craziest part? This claim spread like wildfire across 3 continents without phones, internet, or social media. Just word of mouth. That's how powerful it was. This wasn't just another philosophy. It was revolutionary. Jesus wasn't saying, "Here's the truth." He was saying, "I am the truth." It changed everything. Instead of truth being a set of rules, it became someone you could actually know. Even today, when people ask, "What is truth?" they're echoing the same question asked 2,000 years ago, and Jesus' answer, it's still stopping people in their tracks. Picture this. You're being killed for something you didn't do. People are mocking you. You're in horrible pain. What would your last words be? Most would scream in anger or cry for help. But Jesus, he looked at the people killing him and said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." These words were so powerful, that the Roman soldier in charge of the execution was completely shocked. Think about it. This guy had probably watched hundreds of people die, but he'd never seen anyone respond like this. Let's get real. Forgiveness is hard enough when someone just cuts you off in traffic. But forgiving people who are actively hurting you, that seems impossible. Yet this moment has inspired some of the most incredible acts of forgiveness in history. Take the Amish community of nickel mines. In 2006, when a gunman killed 5 of their children, they didn't seek revenge. Instead, they visited the shooter's family to offer forgiveness. This story made headlines worldwide because it seemed unbelievable in our revenge-loving culture. Medical science has actually studied forgiveness. The Mayo Clinic found that people who forgive live longer, have stronger immune systems, and experience less anxiety and depression. It's like Jesus knew something about human psychology that scientists are just now discovering. But here's what's really mind-blowing. This teaching keeps showing up in unexpected places. Remember Rwandan genocide survivor Immaculée Ilibagiza? She forgave the people who killed her family. When asked why, she pointed to these exact words of Jesus. Even in modern courtrooms, we've seen incredible moments inspired by this teaching, like when a judge in Texas hugged a convicted murderer after the victim's brother forgave her. The video went viral because it seemed to break all the rules of how we think justice should work. These words of Jesus challenge everything we think we know about handling wrongs done to us. They suggest that true strength isn't in getting even, it's in having the courage to forgive. Early morning in Jerusalem. A crowd gathers, dragging a woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders are ready to stone her. That was the law back then. They bring her to Jesus, thinking they've set the perfect trap. If he shows mercy, he breaks the law. If he agrees with the stoning, his message of love looks fake. His response? He bends down, writes in the dirt, and says these words that stopped everyone dead in their tracks. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. One by one, starting with the oldest, they all walked away. Why? Because this simple statement forced them to look in the mirror. It's easy to point fingers until someone reminds you of your own mistakes. This story is fascinating because it's one of the rare moments where Jesus wrote something. Though we don't know what he wrote in the dirt, some historians think he might have been listing the accuser's own sins. Imagine their faces as they read their secret wrongs written in the sand. Fast forward to today. A study by the University of Michigan found that people who are quickest to condemn others often struggle with guilt about their own similar actions. It's like Jesus understood human psychology better than we do, even with all our modern research. Think about how this applies now. Social media has become our modern stone-throwing arena. People get cancelled for mistakes they made years ago, often by others hiding their own failures. Jesus' words hit different in a world of cyberbullying and internet shaming. Here's a real example that went viral. When a company CEO was caught in a scandal, instead of firing him, the board asked every executive to share their biggest mistake. Nobody could throw the first stone. The result? A complete change in company culture that business schools now study. The power of these words isn't just about stopping judgment, it's about starting compassion. When you realize everyone's got their own struggles, it changes how you treat people. When Jesus shouted these words from the cross, they caught everyone off guard. Here was someone who claimed to be connected directly to God, crying out about feeling abandoned. It's probably the most raw, human moment in Jesus' life. Think about it. Even some of his followers were confused. They expected a powerful Messiah, but instead saw someone experiencing the deepest kind of human pain. These words have brought comfort to millions who felt alone in their darkest moments. Did you know this cry was actually a quote? Jesus was reciting Psalm 22, a Jewish prayer that starts with despair but ends in hope. Jewish people watching would have recognized this instantly. It's like when someone today quotes a famous movie line. Everyone knows what comes next. Martin Luther King Jr. mentioned this moment in his final speech. He talked about how these words help people facing their own struggles. Even Mother Teresa wrote about feeling this same abandonment for almost 50 years of her life, yet she kept serving others. Modern grief counselors point to this moment when helping people through loss. It shows that even the strongest person can feel abandoned, and that's okay. Studies show that acknowledging these feelings actually helps people heal faster than trying to stay positive all the time. Here's what's powerful. In that moment of feeling forsaken, Jesus still said, "My God." Even in his deepest pain, he held on to faith. It's like someone still trusting their best friend, even when it feels like they've disappeared. This moment changes how many people view suffering. Instead of asking, "Why would God let this happen?" they remember that even Jesus felt this way. It doesn't take away the pain, but it helps them feel less alone in it. Known as the Golden Rule, this might be Jesus' most quoted saying. But here's what's fascinating. When he said it, he wasn't just giving advice. He said, "This one principle sums up all religious teaching." That's a bold claim. What makes this rule golden? It asks us to use our imagination before we act. Before you do something to someone else, imagine it being done to you. It's like having a moral GPS that works in any situation. Scientists at Harvard recently studied this principle. They found when companies train employees to use this rule, workplace satisfaction goes up 70%. Customer complaints drop dramatically. It's like Jesus handed us the perfect business strategy 2,000 years ago. Every major religion has some version of this teaching. Buddhism says, "Hurt not others with that which pains yourself." Islam teaches to wish for others what you wish for yourself. It's like humanity kept discovering the same truth in different places. Here's a real example. A homeless man in Detroit found a wallet with $900. Instead of keeping it, he tracked down the owner. When asked why, he said he'd want someone to do the same for him. This story went viral because it showed this principle in action. The rule seems simple, but it's revolutionary. Before making decisions, successful leaders often ask, "How would I feel if someone did this to me?" It's changed company policies, influenced laws, and transformed relationships. What's really interesting is how this rule creates a ripple effect. Studies show that when people experience kindness, they're more likely to be kind to others. One person living by this rule can impact hundreds. A lot of people think this is Jesus promising some kind of magical ATM in the sky. But that's missing the whole point. When you dig deeper, you find something way more interesting. In Jesus' time, people thought you had to earn God's attention through perfect behavior or fancy rituals. Then Jesus comes along and says, "Just ask." It was like telling people they could directly call the CEO instead of going through all the managers. Psychology professors at Stanford found something fascinating. People who believe they can ask for help are generally more successful than those who don't. Why? Because they're not afraid to reach out when they need support. It's like Jesus was teaching networking skills before networking was a thing. But here's the part many miss. Jesus wasn't just talking about asking for stuff. The original language suggests persistence. Keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. It's more like keep at it than make a wish. Ever heard of Nicholas Winton? During World War II, he kept asking officials to help save Jewish children. Everyone said no at first. But he kept asking and eventually saved 669 kids from the Holocaust. It's a perfect example of what Jesus meant. Recent brain studies show that persistent asking actually changes how our brains work. It keeps us focused on goals and helps us notice opportunities we might have missed. When you're really asking for something, your brain starts looking for ways to make it happen. This teaching has practical effects too. Business leaders often say the biggest difference between successful and unsuccessful people is simply that successful people ask for what they want. They ask for the promotion, the meeting, the opportunity. This might be Jesus's most surprising statement. He tells a story about Judgment Day, but with an unexpected twist. He doesn't ask people about their beliefs or church attendance. Instead, he talks about how they treated others in need. The shocking part. Jesus says, when you help someone in need, it's like you're helping him directly. Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. This completely changed how people viewed helping others. This teaching created the world's largest charitable movement. Today, over 125,000 hospitals worldwide were started by Christians inspired by these words. That's not counting countless food banks, homeless shelters, and disaster relief organizations. Look at José Andrés, the famous chef. When disaster strikes anywhere in the world, his World Central Kitchen shows up to feed people. Why? He often quotes this teaching of Jesus. His team has served over 70 million meals worldwide since 2010. Studies show something interesting. Helping others actually helps you. Research from the University of California found that people who regularly help others have better health, live longer, and feel more satisfied with life. It's like Jesus understood the science of happiness long before scientists did. Here's what's powerful. Jesus made helping others personal. He didn't just say, be charitable. He said, when you see someone hungry, that's me. When you see someone sick or in prison, that's me. It changed charity from a duty into something deeply personal. The impact. Even today, religious groups provide more social services than any other private organizations. The Salvation Army alone serves over 25 million Americans each year. All because Jesus said helping others was like helping him. In a world that celebrates fighters and warriors, Jesus did something radical. He called peacemakers the children of God. This wasn't just nice words. It was a complete flip of what people valued. Think about the context. Jesus lived under Roman rule, where power meant everything. People expected a warrior Messiah who'd lead armies. Instead, Jesus blessed those who made peace. It's like showing up at a boxing match and praising the referee instead of the fighters. This teaching inspired some amazing real-life heroes. Take Desmond Doss, the World War II medic who saved 75 lives without ever carrying a weapon. His story, told in the movie Hacksaw Ridge, shows how being a peacemaker doesn't mean being weak. Here's something fascinating. Columbia University studied international conflicts over 50 years. They found that peaceful negotiations were twice as likely to create lasting solutions compared to military victories. It's like Jesus knew something about conflict resolution that we're just now proving scientifically. Modern peacemakers keep showing us how this works. Remember the Northern Ireland peace process. George Mitchell spent 5 years getting opposing sides to talk. People said it was impossible, but the peace agreement has held since 1998. Even in everyday life, this teaching makes a difference. Studies show that workplaces with trained mediators have 50% fewer conflicts and higher productivity. Schools with peer mediators see less bullying. It turns out that making peace isn't just nice, it's practical. The power of this teaching? It doesn't just tell us to avoid conflict, it calls us to actively create peace. there's a big difference between not fighting and actually building bridges between people. There you have it. 10 ancient sayings that still shake up our world today. Whether they're being tested in science labs or changing lives in war zones, these words keep proving themselves powerful. Think about this. Which of these teachings could change your life if you actually tried it? Just one could be enough to start something amazing. Hey, if this video got you thinking, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Drop a comment with the saying that hit you the hardest. Want more mind-blowing ancient wisdom? Hit subscribe and the notification bell. Remember, sometimes the oldest wisdom hits different. See you in the next video.